Okay, so hi everybody. Welcome to another Innovation Cafe. This one is a really special one because our guest is inside an airplane. Okay, we've had here someone inside a Tesla, but we are now on the Premier League because our guest is actually about to literally fly. And I will shut up immediately. And over to you, Michael. It's a pleasure to have you here. We are honored to listen to your story, your background, your startup ecosystem that you are driving at the moment. I will mute myself now. Thank you.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. I am, in fact, sitting inside a Cirrus SR-22 airplane. I'll give folks a quick view of that. So I'm sitting in Pompano Beach, Florida, in what's known as a run-up area, where you prep the airplane just prior to departure. And I've been doing system checks on the airplane. I have um, engine instrumentation here, and I have flight information here. So I'm prepping for the ability to take off and go fly over the Everglades for a little bit after we wrap this up today. I'm going to stay on the ground while we talk just to be safe. Yeah, no, excited to be here and talk about IoT.
This is already the most innovative session ever. Okay, we are all really proud of this. Okay.
Well, it's actually a very interesting thing because I would tell you that one of the industries that leads the field in IoT is aviation. So there are so many innovative things in IoT that happen because we stream data from airplanes, and even my little airplane, and it's a little airplane. It seats 4 people. It can fly for about 5 hours. So to give people context, if I'm in Florida, I can probably fly to North Carolina or Virginia before I need to refuel. If I were in England, I could probably make it to the border of France and Germany on one tank of fuel. So it's a small plane, but my airplane captures data on its engine performance, and it sends that data off to a service that analyzes it, and I can get real-time alerts if there's something wrong with my engine that I need to be alerted to. So that's quite interesting. I also use this device here, which is doesn't look like much, but when I go to my moving map, I can actually see. I'm going to zoom in on my map here. So if you can see I've got an iPad. It shows me traffic. So it shows me other airplanes. Those little blue triangles are other airplanes. It tells me their altitude relative to me. So here's one that's 900 feet above me, probably coming into land here at the airport. So we'll probably be able to see that airplane land in a minute. So I use IoT quite a bit. And I actually use IoT to do other things like control my hangar where I keep the plane. I can turn on a heating system to heat it up so that the oil in the airplane is warm, and I can start the airplane when I get to the hangar. I can even unlock the hangar and open the door remotely as well. So IoT is pretty cool. I've been doing IoT for, I don't know, 10, 11 years now, and we work on a variety of different kinds of projects at TeraCode, hooking all sorts of machinery up. I'm a really big believer that if you can get the data and you can analyze the data, you can do really cool things with it, and that's our mission, to show people it's not hard, it's actually quite easy. Get the data and analyze it, and then make really good decisions based on the data you're collecting.
Over to you, Steph. My favorite co-host is here today.
I'm finding the mute button. Hi guys. Yeah, you're always the best host anyway, Hugo. I'm just chuffed to be here with you. Mike, how are you doing? This is so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't think we're ever going to top this, Hugo. I can't imagine it. I don't think we're ever going to top this. I think you've just kind of like dropped the mic, Mike.
Well,
no, I'm here. Yeah. I got the mic. Yeah. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. But
I got it.
So Marcus and I had a chat. So one of the guys from TeraCode that we know very well, Marcus, give us a little shout if you're, I can't see you on the screen right now. But no, I'm really looking forward to your masterclass. And obviously you've given a great example of how this links to, you know, everyday life and things that we take for granted. And the IoT basically underpins everything that we touch, from particularly from a logistics and transport perspective. Yeah, I'm just keen to get cracking and really kind of find out more about the man that is Mike Slack.
Oh, well, that's probably less interesting than the airplane and IoT. I've been a technology person my whole life. I started with technology back in the 1970s, playing on TRS-80s, programming them in Radio Shack stores, and just pursued a career in academically in math and science, and then on to programming. And I worked in computer gaming for a while. I know when I first met Hugo, he was quite excited. I worked for companies like Looking Glass that made Flight Unlimited, a flight simulator. It was around the time I started flying. And then I went to work for a company out in Las Vegas that made Red Alert and Command and Conquer. And then I went on to do some sports games at Accolade. I did Jack Nicklaus golf towards the end of his career, just before Tiger came on board. And then I shifted into more mainstream business software and doing software development projects. I started a company called Inceptor during the kind of internet bubble boom era, and grew that. It was an online marketing company that used algorithms to automatically figure out how to manage your online marketing spend. And then we sold that company to Verizon, and it put me in a position to start TeraCode. And now I'm doing what I love, right? I love solving problems for clients. I mean, every day clients present us with new, interesting problems to solve. And, I think it's, to do it simply, cost effectively, quickly, and have a good result. Those are really the fundamentals of my approach. And so we're always trying to do it, and we're always learning. IoT is an evolving thing. So, I just recently moved to Florida. I could not take the cold of Boston anymore, so I'm now down here in Florida. I'm sorry, I know it's cold where most of you are. It's about 85 degrees here, maybe close to 30 degrees centigrade. Very, very warm day. I actually have the air conditioning blowing quite hard.
I think we can open for questions, guys.
Sure.
It's a good opportunity to ask anything right now regarding innovation, IoT, flying an airplane. I think any question is valid. Eloy, you are in the call. You are usually very active. What's happening with you today?
Hi there. No, I'm just, contemplating this amazing start. Brilliant stuff, Mike. I wish you a very good flight after we end this conversation, man.
Thank you.
Now, looking forward for our discussion. It's a very interesting topic, and you have a path in which, I would say data and IoT were part of it, beyond the part of creativity for sure. And I will start with a contemporary question. So what do you think will be the biggest challenge from now on? What do you think changed in the tech world from this pandemic forward?
Oh, that's a great question. So, it's pretty clear that we're going to change the way we work. Certainly white collar workers, office workers, more and more of us will work from home and remotely. So, how we connect with one another and how we maintain those connections and how IoT and technology enables that is going to be important. I mean, look what we're doing today, right? I'm Zooming to you from the cockpit of an airplane. Can I do it at 5,000 feet? Probably not. It's not safe, but, I don't have connectivity yet. But, they're getting ready to launch satellite-based Wi-Fi. And when we have satellite-based Wi-Fi, why couldn't we do this? My plane has autopilot. Punch on autopilot. As long as I'm paying attention, I can keep a conversation going. So I think that's, a big change that you'll see accelerate because of the pandemic. But also more automation, more monitoring, more remote monitoring. we work with one of the largest companies in the U.S. that makes hand sanitizers, and we helped them this year, develop new apps and ways to monitor hand sanitizer stations to make sure that they never ran empty. And that's just a great use of IoT, because what good is a hand sanitizer if it's empty? And I think we used to walk by them before and not pay too much attention to them, but now every time you see a hand sanitizer, you want to stick your hand in front of it and get something to clean your hands. If they're empty, they're just a doorstop. So being able to track those kinds of things, being able to monitor how many people use a space, to be able to notify a cleaning team to go clean it, things like that become very important as we go back to work and we want to stay safe. Being able to know that these protocols aren't just things we wrote down on paper, but they're actual things that we can monitor and perform to.
Right.
But it goes far beyond that, right?
Yeah.
Just like, how do we automate things? How do we, reduce the need for people to be physically present? So I think that's, a big part of what the pandemic has done in terms of pushing technology forward.
Brilliant. And Mike, you've led the big teams for sure during your career, and remote surely for you probably is not something new, but many companies nowadays are going to have challenges in managing talent in a remote way. How do you maintain team spirits with distributed teams? That's one of the biggest questions that now.
Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, I was literally having this conversation yesterday with my my VP of development. We have almost 200 people on staff. They're working from home now. And so certainly, keeping them engaged in their projects, but also engaged with their teammates is a high priority for us. We're doing more of the things that you would think we would do. So we're doing more meetings where we get together on Zoom. We're encouraging the teams to open up their Zoom links and be on video with each other for at least part of the day, so that they're not isolated and alone. We are, creating showcases for the work people do. We're doing more promotion of the projects people work on, individual showcases, things like this CEO Cafe, this Innovator Cafe. We do that within the company, right? And we look at, projects people work on in their own time. People bring hobbies to these things, just to keep us connected. And it's important. It can't just be Facebook and Instagram kinds of posts that do it. There needs to be this bi-directional communication.
Yeah, it's too superficial if it's just online. Yeah, I get it. So I understand that you are a man of many passions: flying, IoT, and many others like gaming and so on. So, but what gives you butterflies in the stomach looking forward? What is the technology or the initiative that really makes you wake up with enthusiasm?
Well, I would tell you that advances in modern medicine and what happened this past year with the vaccine development are very exciting for me. Using science and math and particularly algorithmic science to help derive solutions to some of the world's biggest problems excites me. I'm personally very excited about a technology called CRISPR. CRISPR is basically a tool for editing DNA
engineering.
Yeah, and that could eliminate diseases like multiple sclerosis and what we call Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, but other kinds of cancers that are genetically based. I just lost a cousin to pancreatic cancer a few weeks ago. He was only 63, and it's like, I think there'll be a cure for these things in the next decade, right? We'll be curing these things.
Definitely.
But those are minor problems, right? I mean, the bigger problems we face are not even the coronavirus. It's, what are we doing to our planet, and how can we use IoT to have less of an impact on the planet and maybe, extend our lifetime here.
Definitely, yeah. And CRISPR is really interesting. I do believe, though, like in many other things like autonomous driving and that the world needs to have more ethical discussions about it, because CRISPR is really dangerous. It's like a community decides to eradicate male mosquitoes so that they don't procreate, but they eliminate the whole species. So the impact on the ecosystem is and predictable. And those sort of decisions need to be discussed at a higher level. And I don't know your opinion, I don't feel that we're having those discussions.
Well, they occur, but everything right now is so polarizing in society. So taking a
right.
position on something is very difficult to do.
You're very right, yeah.
For fear of alienating some part of the spectrum. But I think things like CRISPR, you're right. There are some definite ethical concerns there, but if we stay focused on the positive that it can do, we have a real good shot at changing the trajectory of human life, and eliminating a large part of suffering. And that's worth pursuing. That's worth undertaking the challenge of the ethical dilemmas. The mosquito example, I don't like mosquito bites more than any. I would say that that's a pretty drastic approach, but but I understand how science is trying to solve problems, right? I would prefer breeding them so they're less interested in biting me than eliminating them.
We have a question. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I just want to jump in on the ethics question, so I want us to pick up on that. Mike, we've touched on this briefly before, but do you think that there's an opportunity now that business leaders such as yourself can actually really lead and inform the ethics and the policy discussions in a more active way? Because obviously the policymakers at the moment, and sorry politician friends, I do love you dearly, but they're not keeping up, they're not ahead of the curve, and it's almost as if they're turning a blind eye because they're finding it almost too difficult an area to discuss or really move forward. Do you think things are going to change, and that business leaders, the people who are the tech leaders, who really truly understand the impacts, are going to be the ones making the policy changes moving forward?
Well, that's a great question. And at the risk of being slightly controversial, I'm not sure that business leaders or tech leaders are any more ethical or less ethical than our political leaders. We're living in a bit of a strange era. I come from a different generation. I'm in my mid 50s, and I see what goes on today with cancel culture, and I'm just saddened by it, because you should be able to have these debates. You should be able to discuss the ethics of these things without it being so polarizing. Maybe we'll get there. I hope so. I don't know what it's going to take for us to sort of be kinder to one another. But I'm focused on how I can use technology, and technology can benefit people. So to that extent, I think we are trying to do our part to make the world a little bit better. If everybody just does a little bit, it helps, but I don't think it's going to be solved in a political debate or by the tech leaders of our time right now. That's for sure. I'm hopeful that some very smart young people out there are going to figure out how to get us back on the right track.
We have another question here. I see a lot of people asking things now, and I know why, because there's a lot of interest in the topic we are talking here today. And the question is related to how can we scale IoT throughout organizations? So comparing to software, it was pretty fast. And there's a famous article called "Software is Eating the World." So is IoT eating the world, or it's not there yet?
So the huge problem with IoT is the gating factor to scaling IoT is human capacity. So we're a company that does IoT, and people can't find enough developers to build IoT apps, and there just aren't enough people to implement the systems. It's got to move from the complexity, the level of complexity it has today, to something that's a bit simpler. So that's our approach. Our approach is that IoT should be very plug and play, very easy to have access to, and not require lots of developers to make it happen. So moving in that direction is the only way to help it scale. Part of this is going to be that computers start writing some of the applications we need. AIs start telling us what should be connected and what shouldn't. Brings us right back around to the ethics question about how much will depend on artificial intelligence to kind of direct our lives, but I think we don't scale to the level we need to without depending more on AI.
And we have
That makes
science.
sense. Was that?
It does
I
make
hope that.
sense. People are still thinking this is complex.
Yeah, no, it's not an
It-
easy topic, right? Yeah.
It's not an easy
So-
topic.
So, Michael, hi, Paul Wheels here. How you doing? On the back of that, and I agree with you with AI coming in to help, but is it not also building tools that enable more configuration and less code to accelerate as well?
Yeah, and that's what I mean when I say it has to be simple, like Legos, easy to use. Last year, we came out with a platform and a device, and you can plug in a sensor and in a matter of minutes log into a dashboard and be seeing the data. It literally has to be that simple. If it's easy enough that you can bring something home and do it at home, you should be able to do it at work, and extend it to any application that you need, and not have to be a programmer or a developer. And I think you're seeing platforms like that emerge, and you will continue to see that because it's how this will happen quicker.
Yeah, I'd like to do a little plug here because that's exactly what I've built as a developer kit. If anybody can see my camera here, this is Vizi AI. You can build using computer vision with edge computing at the edge, $200 on arrow.com. And it's the edge platform is literally configuration, less code, so you can focus on the AI side of things. And it's exactly that's what we're aiming for as well, Michael.
Yeah, and you're right on target, right? I mean, it needs to be simple and easy for people to do, and as you scale, hopefully the price points can come down, so people can experiment at scale for very reasonable, budgets. I mean, we do things where it's like around $10 a device to get it connected with a battery, and when you can get down to that kind of low pricing, when you start talking about connecting 1,000 devices, it becomes still within the range of affordable for companies. So, and they're willing to risk and take a chance trying something new to see if they can actually improve their business.
Yeah, and enabling things to be able to copy and paste for your rollout. Build your proof of concept, or as we call them, digital experiments. Try it out, get it working, get that formula right, and then replicate, literally copy and paste onto the devices for deployment.
Exactly. I agree completely. Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? I guess we have many here. Kevin, you want to unmute, or should I ask?
Yeah, the initial preamble started with some really simple IoT things like the binary switch. Is your hangar door open or closed? And then we get to hand sanitizer, which is an integer, right? What is the volume of liquid in this bottle? But I'm kind of guessing with COVID, a system or a thing which people are going to be very interested in is the human thing, right? That I am a bundle of data. What are the issues that you see with getting that vitally important data out of these walking around items that we've got and into a way that they're actually usable?
Well, there's a lot of complexity around human data because it's private, right? I mean, human data is something that you have to be genuinely careful of. I mean, I certainly think like temperature. I mean, we know that the technology exists to look at a group of people and figure out who's running a temperature, right? Which is one of the indicators you might be suffering, symptoms of COVID. Not the only symptom and not a guarantee, but just something that's a data point. People have to volunteer and opt in to the system. I mean, obviously, I have a Apple Watch. It monitors my heart. It monitors my breathing. It knows if I'm moving. And it shares that information with me. I'm not sure how comfortable I am sharing that information, with the rest of the world yet, right? I don't know how we're going to solve that problem in particular, but I do think there is, systems and things that we can do to help people today. We've worked on projects that actually monitor people in their home, but not monitoring the person so much as monitoring, did they get out of bed because we have bed sensors? Did they make coffee because we can monitor that? Did they use the bathroom? And, we know where they are moving around without actually physically connecting to the human to understand if their disease is progressing or staying stable. And so, our environment will increasingly become sensed. And that, I think, is the first path to what you're describing before we start trying to figure out how to extract data from the human. That's a ways off in any kind of significant way.
And I believe it will also help to customize medicine for people. If you know their data together with their genetics, you can put those two together and personalize the drugs.
Yeah, so I mean, they do that today, but it's very private, right? In other words, your DNA gets sampled and sequenced, and your doctor works with it with a lab to determine the right, medicine for you based on your genetic makeup. But we're not sharing it at large to help the spread of a disease, right? Because those diseases don't spread communally, right? They're usually either expressed or genetically based inside of you. So, but as the question, as I understood it, is how do we use human data to kind of help us manage the world where we have things like COVID spreading? That's going to be a challenge, right? I mean, how do we reach a point where we know somebody has COVID before they know it? Years ago, there was a great article that appeared that Target department stores knew you were pregnant before you did, based on your buying habits. Could we eventually determine that somebody has COVID before they even know they have COVID, before they take a test? Probably. Could we do that with the science that we have today? Possibly. Is it ethical? Can we do it and not violate privacy laws? That I don't think is the case. But
yeah, that would be my comment. You would be touching that barrier of privacy that, it's in many countries it's already thrown away, that barrier, but in most countries, most democratic countries, still exists. And I believe that will be also one of the biggest battles for the future, the battle for the right to your privacy.
So guys, I want to ask a quick question. Does anyone find the use of a handheld temperature check invasive? Do they feel that they're nervous if they're going into a building that they may be put at risk or something like that? Now, that's a perfect example of an IoT solution that could be created that is less invasive, that's more respectful of privacy for people as well, rather than taking a photo of someone going in, scanning them, etc. There are ways that we can adopt IoT to be less invasive and actually to have a better human experience. So I'd love to hear, Mike, what do you think that can be done to enhance the human experience through that environment? So for example, if you're in a hospital, it's not just the medical analysis or your bloods analysis, it's also the fact that we know environmental data can improve your healing process by making the environment more like your home. The mental impact means that you will heal faster, the lighting, etc. What do you think we could use IoT for in that capacity?
Making the hospital environment more like your home sounds like, we want the holodeck from Star Trek in our hospital rooms to some degree. Could that happen in the future? Sure. Are we anywhere close to it? No. I think to your first point, though, the handheld temperature checks, where they just put a scanner up to your forehead, they're not super invasive because they don't touch you, but it is, somebody checking you and your temperature, and it's accurate. And I think the technology that exists to kind of scan people in a room isn't as accurate, right? It wouldn't give you the same level of accuracy, and there's just too much risk not to be accurate about detecting temperatures, people with elevated temperatures right now, given the state of the pandemic. So I don't know that changes in any significant way. You could build thermostats into doorways, so as people go through the turnstile or something, their temperature's checked, and there isn't another human doing it, it's a machine doing it, so it's less invasive that way, but it's still got to be checked, right? That's still part of the safety protocol. But things that could really help would be sensors that help us understand, if we're wearing our masks correctly or if we're touching our mouth or our eyes. One of my clients had a really great idea about just a simple, very inexpensive haptic rubber bracelet, like the ones we buy, for a charity or a cause, and that having a sensor in it. And if you're going to touch your mouth or your eyes, which is one of the ways COVID spreads, it just gives you a little buzz, and it gives you a pause to remind yourself, hey, maybe I should sanitize or wash my hands before I touch my eyes or my mouth. Things like that could really help. And then, having better technology around masks, because so many people wear masks but they fall down, or there are air gaps, and we're not getting the coverage that we think or the protection that we need. Those are areas where IoT could certainly be applied now and help.
If I can say something, Steph, hi, I'm Bruno from Fingenalgo, and we had a couple of projects where we had a couple of experiences with some clients that were doing some experiences on IoT, and one of the most interesting cases I've seen is the sensor devices on, I think it's Starbucks, that they get the number of coffee and the temperature and so on, satisfaction from the clients based on that, and room temperature and so on, and they get all in a huge data warehouse, and they get results out of it. They can say, well, on Starbucks number XYZ, that we're going to have problems because the machine is not working well, the temperature of the coffee is not been going out in the right way. I've seen another interesting approach, and I say interesting to be polite, because they were measuring people's temperature in order to understand if they were willing to buy something. So if you are actually in that point that you want to buy something, they will measure your brain temperature and say, oh, she has already decided, and now it's just a negotiation phase. But you didn't know that they had the camera. They knew before you that you were already into the product, so they could better bargain the price. And of course, in the US, that got into problems of privacy. And last but not least, and on persons' health, I've been working with a company called Brain Lab that does neurosurgery and ridiculously advanced systems for neurosurgery and health tech. And what I've found interesting is that all the new devices that have been producing, from X-rays to surgery devices, are more or less what Michael was saying, and we've been talking along, is a combination of, let's call it, augmented human technology. So when you're performing something as a surgeon, the machine itself will tell you the temperature and what's going on, and help you. So if you want to do a small incision, the machine will help your hand to get to the right spot, plus several sensors around the body of the patient to inform you. So I think it's amazing, and that's what we've been saying. It's really, your question is really interesting. There's a lot of angles, and sometimes we have a great idea to help out, and there's 30 other ways that you're actually going to backfire on privacy and regulation, and actually, let's say, on against us. Just to say, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
So the first part of what you said is quite interesting. The technology that's out there that does mood sensing and sentiment sensing based on camera images. That's, in the United States, we don't have the same protections around video that you do in other parts of the world. They can't record us, our voices, because there's a wiretapping law, but they can video us, which is why there are cameras everywhere. And, you're right. They can look at you and be pretty accurate in predicting your sentiment to a product. And can it change how we buy things? Yeah. But I think more and more of us are going to buy things from home anyway. So be more worried about the web camera on your computer than the cameras in the stores that we're not going to go to anymore.
Absolutely.
And
just
when
want to tell
we're
you that we have something on fintech where people are actually, we're doing some tests, and people are actually willing to provide their data as a coin, as a means to buy stuff, as a payment.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right?
Well,
just what you said.
The data pound. It's actually one of our old colleagues, Tirith Verdi, discussed that recently for number 10.
Yeah, I think it's always a matter of trading, right? If people are willing to trade personal information because they get something in return, whether it's information they want or a product they want, that's not going to change, right? That's part of human history. So companies will try and take advantage of that. It's up to governments to regulate the extent to which that can be done. So.
Yeah, but certain governments are pursuing the path of having social scoring. They will score you for your behavior if you pay your taxes, if you get arrested, if you spit on the floor. You get a rating, and you'll be able to your freedom will be measured, limited by that.
Well, So that's complicated, right? Like changing the distribution of law based on your behavior. That's what laws are for, right? So, if you break the law, and you speed, you get a speeding ticket and you have to pay a penalty for it. You get enough of them, you lose your driver's license. You commit a different kind of crime, they incarcerate you, they put you in jail. Using points to do the same thing, it's just more monitoring, right? I mean, there are some cultures that do that pretty effectively today. And people should be responsible for behaving appropriately in those situations. But I don't know that that's going to become a predominant form of government. What I do think is likely to happen is because of IoT, you see it already with driving. If you plug in a device to your car and you drive responsibly, you pay less for your insurance.
Yep.
If you maintain your health and you share your exercise and health data, could you pay less for your medical insurance? So I think those things will actually start to happen in societies that haven't nationalized the healthcare system and so forth. But even there, you might argue that you might distribute healthcare to people who take better care of themselves before you distribute it to people who don't, right? If it's a limited resource. But that's a moral ethics question again, so it brings the circle back. But but on a pure pay for play basis, if I can eat healthy and keep my weight under a certain level, and that saves me $1,000 a year in health insurance premiums, it's up to me to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I've seen some experiences, especially in agrotech, where the laws are, of course, for animals are way more flexible than are for humans, and the impacts have been huge. You could actually measure temperature with cows and so on, and you could actually see how they're happy or not so happy. And on aviation, where you are now and experiencing, I've seen some quite interesting proposals on helping with augmented visualization plus pilot connected sensors to see if you're actually able to pilot or not before you actually get the license. So you're piloting on your first private license lessons, and they monitor your heart sensor and so on. Actually, there's a Portuguese T-shirt, I guess, that helped out on that. And it's interesting because on the second lesson, they can tell you, look, you're gonna have a heart attack, or you're gonna have this problem, and if you get into some crazy loops with -7 Gs or something like that, so you shouldn't pursue this course. And like, okay, that's contrasensual because most of the companies will want to sell the license. But again, I think it's a super interesting area, and we can see an amazing advantage of getting IoTs everywhere.
Sure.
And I'm really curious what other ideas might come out of there. And in agrotech, I can tell you, it's amazing. It's been helping a lot small farmers in getting, for example, subsidies from the state even before they actually realize that they're going to need it, or the veterinary gets called in before even they could even imagine.
Yeah, and that will lead the way for humans too, right? In other words, we'll see the benefits of increased monitoring for things like our pets, and we'll say, well, hey, why can't I have that? Why can't you predict that I'm going to have a heart attack before I have it, so I don't have it? Things like that. So it's all about the where people fall on the spectrum of being comfortable with science, kind of intervening in their life. But consider where we are. There's a large portion of the population that's doesn't want to get vaccinated, doesn't want to wear masks. We got a long way to go, right? We got a long way to go on people.
Hey Mike, can you tell us a bit more about TeraCode? Is it planning to conquer Europe from the UK? What's the plan? Are you flying here often now?
I wish I could fly there. This plane can make the flight across the Atlantic. It's a bit arduous because you have to take that northern route and fly over Greenland, Iceland. Yeah, it's. But people do it. I wouldn't do it in the wintertime. My plane does have a de-icing system, so it can de-ice itself if I encounter ice. But it wouldn't be my first choice. No, I usually rely on United. Believe it or not, it's a year since I've flown to London because of COVID. It's the longest time I haven't been in Europe in 30 years of my career. We, as a company, we're growing because there's a huge demand for what we do, and we're working with companies in the U.S. and Europe today. We're not looking to conquer anything, but we are looking to find more companies who we can help and work with to improve what they're doing in IoT, help solve their problems with IoT, help it, to do it economically and quickly, and show them that the data they can collect can really have a meaningful impact on their business. That's our core message. If you go to our website, it'll say IoT made easy. That's something that we believe in. It should be easy, right? It should be not expensive. It should be something you can do and benefit from quickly. So that's our mission, is to get more and more people doing things with IoT and solving more and more problems. And, maybe a little conquering. Certainly at a pub or two.
We have a human-centered designer here in the room. Tiago, this is for you. Tiago, how do you think IoT is going to influence, designers? Can IoT and designers work together?
I don't know. That's a really good question, right? Like potentially yes. Like I see the benefits as well of some intelligence in the way that we conceive and plan to conceive things. What I think, would like to have Michael perspective on this as well, but something that I feel technology is probably still a little bit far from replacing us as human is more like the creativity part, right? And the way that we are able sometimes to infer and interpret things or kind of provide meaning to some things. But who knows, like the advancement of artificial intelligence has been so quickly and so extended that maybe it's not so far from that. But yeah, I don't know, like Michael, what do you think?
Wow, that's a very big question. And I love it, right? Because it really is what's possible. What can technology do? I'll tell you. I personally think that we will embrace AI, but we have to be very careful about it. Obviously, it has the power to do things that could be detrimental to humans. But think about it from another context. AI is capable of creating original content, right? So there's already AI that's creating new music. We might watch movies in the future that are completely made from AI. Instead of Tom Cruise starring, it could be, Tom Smith, who's a completely AI generated character who looks as real as Tom Cruise, but he doesn't command a $20 million salary. So that would make movies more accessible to everyone because the price wouldn't have to be $25 to go see the latest Mission Impossible movie. So it could really help. It could write stories for us. But again, you have to be careful because the more we trust AI, the more dependent we'll become upon it. And I don't know how we're going to monitor it. How, who polices the police, right? Who polices the AI? What AI polices the AI? And can we build a system that has enough checks and balances in it that we can be confident in trusting it? So that's the dilemma, but the potential is there, right? I mean, technology can do incredible things for us and improve the quality of our lives, particularly during a pandemic like this, where we're very fortunate that we had the internet and we had television. What if this happened? Go back in time, like 1918 when the flu pandemic spread. There was no internet, there was no TV, right? There was barely radio. What were people doing, right? How did they suffer the isolation? We're living in a very different era today, and so we've relied heavily on technology just to cope with this isolation.
I think we still have time for one more question, because after that Michael will probably lift off. And I have my Spotify song here ready, by the way. It's a Top Gun thing.
So you're welcome to stick with me while I take off, but you'll have to listen to me talk to the people on the ground here a little bit. But you're welcome to stick with me.
So let's take one more question from the
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question. Mike, this is Michael Dunn. Do you have any sense of regulation and the future of regulation when it comes to monitoring AI and creating rules around AI versus individual companies or individual people doing it?
So first I have to say hi. It's a pleasure to see you. Michael Dunn is a good friend of mine and one of the nicest people you could ever meet. And I miss you. I haven't seen you in so long, my friend. I miss you. A tear's coming to my eye to see you. I'm so happy to see you. And the answer to your question is nothing exists today, right? There's no real body of intellectual thought on how we're going to police AI, and it is being left to the people who develop the AI to manage it. And we've all heard the stories about Google's experiments and Facebook. Facebook had to unplug it, right? Because it started creating a language. They developed an AI that started creating a language of its own that the humans didn't understand. So, you know, it's a very big challenge. We don't have the right people in positions of power to really pull together the people we need to work on this. It has to be international. It has to be as big in scope as, you know, when we do the international climate change treaties, you know, because AI it doesn't respect borders, right? AI will go across borders, just like climate. So it's something we as a world have to come together on. We're ways away from AI being that powerful, right? But I think at the same time, you know, it would be nice to see it on the political agenda and on the agenda of tech leaders to be addressing this, right? You see lip service being paid through it, but not much more than that.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I'm just seeing lip service. I'm not seeing anybody really thinking about it and portraying what the future will be.
So guys, I'm just popping a link from the British government. They commissioned a company to run a report. Well, it's an extended piece, a research piece that they're doing. And they're actually questioning algorithms in general, all algorithms. I'm just going to pop the link in there. But I think in the UK, potentially there could be a moment, as I mentioned, one of our old colleagues, he's on the AI committee for number 10. They're starting to realize that the big companies were far too in charge, too much control of their own. And I think they're now making an attempt to pull it back slightly.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened yet, right? What we're discussing right now hasn't happened yet, and I don't think people even know how it has to, right? Somebody mentioned self-driving cars and the ethics around that earlier. I mean, does the car make a decision to save pedestrians on the street and risk the lives of the passengers in the vehicle, or is its job to protect the passengers in the vehicle? It's a great question, right? But we don't have any way of agreeing on an answer to it, right? There's no system in place for that at this point in time, and so it's left to opinion, debate, editorial, and possibly Elon Musk.
That's my next guest, by the way, Elon Musk.
Yeah. Ask him why he didn't tell me he was going to buy $1.5 billion of Bitcoin before he bought it.
I'm also in pain because let's not talk about crypto now, please.
Okay, well, I'm just about to finish my pre-flight here, so if anybody's interested in that, I'm going through a checklist here, and the checklist has me raise the power of my airplane and check some systems. So I'm going to exit this menu and go to my engine menu, and I'm going to raise the RPMs of my airplane to 1700. And then I'm going to check to make sure that my ignition system's working correctly. I look for a drop and for it to come back. Check the other one. Make sure it comes back. I'm going to do some checks on my electrical systems. So I'm looking for Alt-2 to rise. I see that. Now I'm going to look for my Alt-1 to come down. And I see that. Okay. So my engine is good for takeoff. I'll bring the idle back down to idle. And you'll have to bear with me while I call up the ground and get permission to taxi. Oscar. Okay, so the information is Oscar. We will call up ground. Pompano Beach ground. Cirrus 3754 Mike is at the run-up area for runway 33. We'd like to taxi to the active 15 with Oscar. Would it be possible to say the pattern, do some touch goes today, 54 Mike? Via Lima and Delta, 54 Mike, thank you. Okay, we will cross 10 on Delta and hold short of 2454 Mike. You guys still with me on the Zoom?
You're here.
Definitely.
Okay, so, all
Yep.
right, so now I'm going to taxi the airplane to the runway. So I don't know if you can see, let me switch this outside. I will give you as best a view I can, keeping in mind that I have to move my phone if I have to move my hands. But this should give you a pretty good view of what I'm seeing.
It's probably the first time ever via Zoom that we get a view like this. So
Okay, well, in theory, I should be able to do this just till about we take off. Now, one of the nice things about my airplane, it's a Cirrus SR22. It has a parachute for the entire airframe. And so one of my safety checks is to make sure that the parachute handle is free and clear and ready to go. So I've done that. I've tested my engine. I was given permission to taxi to the active runway, but I have to hold short of runway 24. So I'm taxiing now on what's known as taxiway Delta. You can see it on my little map over here. And I'm just scanning the airport area. You're always looking, making sure that no other airplanes are around and invading your space, because you as the pilot are always responsible. That might be a lesson for AI. Okay.
so this is not flight simulator, Mike.
No, this is not Flight Simulator. No.
It's the real deal. Okay, just checking.
This is the real deal, and I'm holding short of runway 24 per their instructions.
It was part of my checklist to ask you this.
We're crossing 24 on Delta, and our engine run-up is already complete, 54 Mike. End of Delta, Bravo Golf for runway 15, 54 Mike, thank you. Okay, so he's given us permission to taxi for takeoff. And we have crossed runway 24, and now we're headed down to runway 15. So we should be airborne in a minute or two. Okay, roger that. Following the Skyhawk ahead, 54 Mike. How you like that fancy pilot lingo? Roger that.
Real life talk.
Look like you're moving fast enough, Mike.
Well, this is real.
Yeah, the camera makes it look like they're going very slow, I think.
Oh, the propeller blades. Yeah. Well, it's actually going quite slow right now. I'm only at I'm at idle speed for taxi, so it's not going very fast.
But I'm really considering using that lingo with my Uber driver. Let's see his reaction.
And you can, I don't know if you can make out, there is a plane in front of me that's going to take off before me. And he's a much slower airplane, so it gives me a little delay.
Mike, how fast will the Cirrus climb?
Oh, very fast. It has a very powerful engine. 310 horsepower. So with just me in the airplane, I'll be at, if I wanted to be at 1,000 feet within the first 30 seconds, I could be there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very powerful engine. That's actually the challenge of the airplane, is that it's so powerful, you have to be really careful of the speeds, of your speeds in it. I don't think you guys can hear the tower's chatter behind me, right? You just hear me?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Roger
So I'm
that.
just waiting here right now for traffic.
Roger that.
And then we'll be up.
I'm waiting to hear a Charlie Tango Foxtrot 1-2.
I don't think we have a Charlie Tango Foxtrot here today, but we are 5-4 Mike. And the plane in front of us is 00 Hotel. So we'll hear that. And we just heard 00 Hotel saying that they're holding short 15. That's a student pilot in front of me. Okay, he's moving and we're moving. Pompano Tower, Cirrus 3754 Mike, holding short 15. Holding short for landing traffic, 54 Mike. Holding short 54 Mike. Okay, so somebody's going to land before they let us take off, which is good because the Cessna is going now, if you look out my window.
He's slow.
And somebody's coming in to land, and I can see him out there now. You might not be able to see him in the camera, but his lights are blinking. I see his landing light, and he's getting closer.
So besides free innovation lessons, we have free piloting lessons as well. The Innovation Cafe is the best thing ever, I guess.
All right, so one of the things I always do before I take off is I go over the rules for using my my parachute usage. So below 500 feet, I can't use it. So if I have an engine failure on my takeoff roll below 500 feet, I have to land straight ahead no matter what. 500 feet to 1,500 feet, if anything goes wrong, collision, my engine goes out, I'm going to pull the parachute without thinking about it. Above 1,500 feet, I have the ability to maneuver the airplane back to try and land it. So that would be my preferred thing to do above 1,500 feet. So I always say that to myself just so that I remember my altitudes. I'm at 0 altitude here right now. As you can see, my altimeter says 60 feet, so that's my field elevation. Okay, we should get our clearance here in a second. Okay. Waiting for the tower. Just like at the real airports, they make you wait. And they don't tell you why. Oh, I see. He's letting another airplane land before me. So, for those of you sticking with me, I appreciate it.
Oh, we thank you for the opportunity.
Well, not every day you get to take off in a small airplane with the pilot.
Definitely.
This is what we call brand activation.
Yeah. So that's the Cessna that took off before me. He's already on final approach here. So I don't know if you can see him in the view.
I think maybe it's Marcus.
Yeah.
If he's in the call. Marcus, are you here with us or piloting? Yeah, it's Marcus for sure.
You never leave your wingman. Never.
Okay, maybe he'll let me go now. Okay, left traffic report, left midfield, downwind, 5-4 Mike, clear, 1-5 for takeoff. Okay, so he cleared me. Now that Cessna is moving much slower than me, so here we go. All right, speed's alive. And we are already in the air, just like that.
Brilliant stuff.
Okay, I gotta put the phone down, boys and girls. But thank you very much.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so
Safe
much.
flight.
All right, enjoy, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all. The video will be uploaded to youtube.com/The Innovation Cafe in a few minutes time. And I think this was unforgettable.
Definitely.
Amazing.
Yeah, great moment.
Thank you very much for hosting.
Thank you. It was
Yeah,
a pleasure to be with all of you.
guys.
Enjoy your day or evening. See you
Have
all
a brilliant
soon.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.